Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.
And if parents can understand, the power of protein, of good carbs, good fats, for their kid, and also hydration as well. Are they fluing up as well? Do you know what I mean? Are they getting, the right hydration in? Are they drinking water throughout the whole day? You know what I mean? You can even get down to the stage of, hydration monitoring, which what I do, like at the clubs that I work for, to the high level ones. I'll weigh everyone, when they first rock up to the game day. They take their weight, and then after they do that, they take their weight after. And then we see how many kilos they've lost, and then we replenish that with water. 1.5 liters of water of every kilo of body weight they've lost.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pardon?
That's a lot. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah, so it's like things like that. Like they can also do that as well. They go, cool. The kid, they can even weigh themselves before they leave home. Do you know what I mean? And they weigh themselves when they get back home, and they go, little Jimmy lost 3 kilos because it was 30-degree heat. And he never had any water at half time. He went straight on the stacks. So, like if you look at these little 3 things, when we didn't even talk about anything about athlete development, nothing about strength, speed, power. All we spoke about was recovery, nutrition, and hydration. You do those 3 and talk about all. For me, I think that is key to be manage it and then prolong things. Your likelihood of injury will decrease, especially your soft tissue injuries as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. There's you've just mentioned all the things off the pitch and out of the gym.
Yeah.
It's like, and then the best way I ask to explain it is like, all right, what are you doing? It's like, how many hours of training do you spend? Most kids, depending on the sport, could be between 5 and 8 hours. Maybe it's for soccer. Swimming could be 20 hours a week. Then obviously you got school on top of that, which is another 35 hours. And you add another 2 hours a day, an hour a day of study. So that's like a full-time job essentially for kids now at school. And then how many? Then you can figure out from there. There's only 168 hours in a week. So what if you spend the most time doing? Whether it's sitting down and eating, whether it's sleeping, which are the 2 big things, right? That we actually require in order to survive, and also hydration status as well. There's 3 things. Our body's made up of, you can correct me if I'm wrong, about between 64 to 68% water.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's just like once you kind of tick those boxes, everything else, all the training, performance, high level, your retention of skills, technical stuff, that all gets further heightened. You're driving adaptations from the gym, strength, power, speed, improve tissue quality, faster contractile rates, whatever it may be, reduce fatigability as well. Then you're really stacking your chips in your favor at that point. And I think the message is it's still slow. And I think I think one of the issues is we don't have the same education when it comes around nutrition as it comes around, like, what do kids learn in school? English, writing, right? Which is practical skills for the workforce, but they're not practical skills to be a fully functional athlete or human being. Yeah. So I always like to say, it's like, hey, let's get the human being functioning well first, then everything else can look after itself, like the student and the athlete will look after itself based on what you're actually doing as well. So I think the biggest issue is, it's the education around sleep. We know that's really important. I know a lot of the kids that I hear of might be on the devices really late at night. So incorporating a sleep routine, as I've seen, is the biggest change. I think that's been a bit of a game changer, especially for parents as well. 8 o'clock, devices are out, they're off, or the alarm is set and forget. Then they're spending an hour and a half getting ready, for the night and the next day. That's what I've seen is a real big change. And then incorporating some sort of red light as well. So instead of using, the normal fluorescent LED lights, incorporate fluorescent lights, incorporating some red lights to actually get the circadian rhythm on time, but also getting them to read a book as well, something they actually particularly want to read. I think that's a real key thing as well.
I try to educate, a lot of my athletes in the same way, especially the devices, the phone. Like I tell them, put your alarm on, put your phone on charge, do whatever you want to do, but put your phone away where you actually can't actually just go back to it in 3 seconds, like next to your pillow, and then you're back up for 1 hour. You saw a message, and then something triggered you. Put it away. just rest, just control, get your central nervous system down. You know what I mean? Go to bed, get a good night's sleep. Like we said before, so many wearables. You can actually track everything, and you just kind of go from there.
Yeah. Then speaking of the nutrition part as well, once you go to bed, nice sleep, it will have your hunger signals will kick in a lot more as well. So first thing in the morning, you actually be able to have a proper breakfast. Then what I have noticed is when kids actually get their sleep on track, then their nutrition starts to improve as well. Their grades actually start to improve. So this is an incentive for parents, right? If you want your kids' grades to improve, work on the sleep, then that'll help possibly impact the nutrition. They'll start to eat better. Their training performance will improve, but also their retention from school actually starts to improve as well. And they perform better. And then also helps to better regulate their mood as well. And this is where I've seen kids get in trouble because they've skipped breakfast. They have like a nut bar at recess. They have a ham and cheese sandwich at lunch. Then by 2:30, they're ready to nod off and go to sleep.
True.
So seeing that completely change in a lot of kids here as well.
And just their focus as well that I've picked up on, their focus to go for the task as well. It's so much better. And obviously we know, like even the kids in sport, when people get fatigued, what happens? Right, mistakes happen through the roof. Focus goes out the window. But then all these three little things that we spoke about go such a long way. And you're playing a sport, you'll make a better decision. Then opposed to someone that slept 3 hours, hasn't had breakfast, skipped lunch, had dinner, do you know what I mean? Didn't drink any water.
Then if you look at some of the best athletes in the world, I think majority of athletes would be very relatively disciplined. I guess during the off season, pre-season, in season, where they're actually looking after themselves, they're making sure they're getting the right training in, eating well. They're doing that majority of the time. Also, it's these top level athletes. So I wish professional athletes would actually showcase more of that, and that would be really cool to actually see more of that, and actually that becoming more like a mainstream thing of athletes showing what they do on a daily basis. Going to bed at a normal time, getting up early, getting up at a relatively normal time as well. Might have your normal routine. Scott Pendlebury, he did his morning routine quite recently as well. He promoted it on social media. So it'd be good to see a lot of these top level athletes, and a lot of kids will actually start to emulate that. And I think role models is a real key component to it. So if you do have a specific athlete that you do follow, the path of success is already paved, right? You just need to walk it. So in that case, you may just pick up on little things or what they're doing outside of their training, whether they're getting their sleep, they're getting their nutrition right, and then everything else from what your coach is actually doing will start to look after that perspective. So it's the behaviors that we can pick up on, not specific just the exercise that you see on Instagram that they're doing. It's actually the specific their behaviors is what we want them to emulate.
And going back one more step, we spoke about, you spoke about Scott Pendlebury saying about his routine. But then if people listening and they're not sure, Scott Pendlebury got picked up from Collingwood by playing basketball. Right. And see how that correlated, to him being a really good football player, and what the person that, picked him up and whoever was the scout saw the ability of him, being in and out, the basketball, what I mean, weaving, you know what I mean, being very good in close distance. You know what I mean? There how that sport changed over. See you, bro.
Yeah, there's heaps of examples like that where I think Jordan Mailata plays for Philadelphia Eagles, and he played in the NRL, but he also said he was too big to play NRL, so he actually went overseas, US, trained up to be the offensive lineman, and now he's starting five for Philadelphia Eagles, and he's played in a Super Bowl as well. Unfortunately, he's down on the most recent Super Bowl win, but yeah, he's a kid that played one sport and had to transfer the skills and the physical prowess in order to transfer across to play a different sport.
Spot on, bro. Spot on, 100%. And that's why, like, kids are young. Don't just, they get to 15, 16, you kind of know, all right, cool. It's usually the kid who wants to take that sport to the next level. Do you know what I mean? Because when they're young, they're like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to become the next Ronaldo, the next Messi, back for, Gary Ablett Jr. But then again, when they get older, it's like, do they still have that same drive?
because we need to install the behaviors.
Spot on.
That's what continues the movement forward when the drive is lacking.
Yeah.
If it's like, for example, right, this is the best part of like motivation, right? We know it's like a roller coaster, ebbs and flows all the time. When I say to the members here, they start off, and you see this all the time with new consoles coming in through the door. So yeah, when can I get started? I'm like, I got some members like, oh, I want to train 5 days a week. I'm like, cool, we're gonna start with 2, because we know we've seen it so many times before, where they're so keen, but they just don't really understand what they're going into as well. So it's more about installing the behavior of them wanting to come in, and then them like, all right, I don't feel as sore. I feel a little bit sore, which is okay. So I'll come in the next day, right? So they come in, and then they continue to build upon that behavior. It's when we gradually build upon small behaviors that become larger over time, it becomes our norm. And this is where I think that a lot of young kids really do have the opportunity, but aren't aware of what behaviors they're installing themselves. Are they consistent? Are they, the sleep? Are they getting into their routine? I talk about this with all the kids that I coach offline and online as well. It's like, whatever you do, stack the chips in your favor on a daily basis, because it just becomes muscle memory. You don't even need to think about it. You can spend your time focusing and put all that energy into your training sessions and on the pitch or on the field, wherever it is, because you've installed behaviors and it doesn't require you to make these drastic changes. And because you have these behaviors in place, if something does happen, you'll have the mental capacity in order to make those changes as well. Because that's the hardest thing to change, is someone's behavior.
And like what we said, motivation only gets you so far. Discipline is what takes over. That motivation will wear off in 2-3 weeks. And me and you, Trent, we're exactly the same. I get the exact same thing. Oh, I'm coming in 5 days a week off season. So I don't want you here 5 days a week. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's no need for you to be here 5 days a week. And that's just me being a realist. You don't need that. You've got so much other stuff going on in your life. You know what I mean? You don't need to do that. You got to make baby steps and slowly grow into it.
And reduces the overwhelm when shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
And
that's
for
exactly right.
and for someone who wants to come in 4 or 5 times a week, and then when they come in twice a week, it becomes a lot more manageable. So, okay, I probably can't come in today. I've got this going on. I'll make this change. So then they can see that it's a positive behavioral change, that they're adjusting to creating that lifestyle that they want. And then over time, it becomes more the norm. Then we incorporate a 3rd day after a couple of months. And maybe after several months, we incorporate a 4th day. Then that might be the norm moving forward for them. And then we just,
Yeah, 100%. Like we just hit the nail on the head. It's just that overwhelm. So, I mean, if you do 2 days and they can't do the Thursday, then they can do the Friday with you. They're still getting the 2 days of quality strength training in. And once we can actually see that they can pick, I always have a chat with my athletes. Like, can you keep up with the demands of this? Can you do this? Are you happy doing that? You're not feeling overwhelmed. You're not feeling tired. You're not feeling stressed. And then we'll say, cool, let's have a look at your whole overall week. All right, now maybe we can add a 3rd day in.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And then you're the same, because we don't want, a lot of athletes that I have as well, they bring themselves to the gym. They get there by public transport. It's like if you're traveling 40 minutes one way, 40 minutes the other, plus the added stress of walking from the train station to here to there, maybe do we just keep it at 2 and keep 2 very good quality sessions? You know what I mean? Until things change.
yeah. And yeah, then the school holidays might hit. You might change schools, you might even finish up school as well, or you might end up moving to the next year level. You might have more free, so you have the opportunity to come in that 3rd session, really take advantage of the time you have. The time's obviously the critical element that we can't change as well. Any final thoughts, Costa? Any resources that would be valuable for parents that you've kind of shared with other parents as well, or other youth athletes?
Probably not as much resources. Me just doing talks and educating when people come to me and things like that. But there's so many people looking for resources, especially parents, making sure you actually have a look what the person's done. Do you know what I mean? From the resources, because I'm seeing someone, oh, I saw this article. It's like, man, a 15-year-old kid could write that article. You never know where you're getting information from. So just actually have a look what they've done, what education they've got, who they build up, who they've been behind, and that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing is too many people are not looking where they get their research from. and where this came from. Someone says something, oh, I'm doing that. It's like, all right, put that in Google, and it's like it's false information, but you heard someone up the road say it's good for them, but the truth is it's not.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. I've never thought about that in terms of like actually vetting the information itself, actually double checking or fact checking that that information is actually accurate or correct, or is it relevant to this time as well. And then obviously whoever wrote that piece or whoever's supplying that piece of information, vetting them as well. Have they been in the industry? I guess it goes back to the whole Kane Corns, right? I remember this like yesterday. He's a prime example of saying things out of place without understanding the full context. Now, there's a Gold Coast Suns AFLW player. She's a lot larger than the average player, but she's a full forward, and she utilized her height and stature to her advantage, right? Then I'm thinking to myself, it's like, all right, if this athlete, right? I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but if she's using her size to her advantage, and Kane Collins is like, nah, she needs to lose weight, she's too big. And I'm like, have you looked at her stat line? Is it actually a detriment to the team? Is she actually healthy? Have you looked at her vitals? Have you gone to the doctor and actually spoken to the club doctor and actually be like, all right, is this athlete actually is she actually generally healthy and okay? She might be able to perform at a heavier body weight, and then her stat line actually signifies that it might be more beneficial to the team and to her. So it's individuals like Kane Corns have spoken, I guess, out of turn or out of place with understanding the full breadth and the full context. But then again, he's paid to be, him. He's paid to be this personality as well. So whether or not he's going to use or get all the information and be able to make more of a clearer judgment than just judging someone based purely on their appearance.
That's exactly right. Yeah, just all the parents out there, whatever you hear, make sure you know where you're getting who wrote the article, whatever that might look like, who's tried it, who's transferred it, because there's just so much noise out there, especially through the social media now. Instagram just blowing up through the roof. People just writing whatever topics, and contradicting themselves. And a lot of podcasts too, they do things so they get a lot of shares and a lot of, and then get more people on the pod, getting more people to listen to them, which helps them make more money. So a lot of these things are just becoming so business driven as well. So making sure we know they're backed. Everything that you hear, everything's backed.
Yeah, we don't make money off this podcast. We just want to share this information because we feel like there's a big deficit in terms of getting good content out to parents and also to kids. Because if we know this actually correct, this bleeds out into the world, we know that people are actually listening and then want to actually make a change and do it for positive reasons, and then not just go with the status quo just because it's always been in place there.
Yeah, exactly right.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Kosta. I really appreciate it. For everyone else, I'll see you on the next one.
You have just listened to the Inner Athlete Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.